Okay, good evening on my end, and good morning to you guys for later. Uh, Today we are in a bit of an unprecedented situation. Desperate times call for desperate measures. This is why I'm now recording this video just to let you guys know that yun nga, SolidWorks is not the only choice of 3D CAD software out there. If you guys have yet to use Onshape, this is how we can use Onshape. Right? Kasi, well, hindi ko na nga kayo naturuan last week. And, well, this week as well, the labs will be inaccessible. So, this is our best way to get through things. I will teach you guys how to use Onshape. So, you should, first and foremost, go to excuse me, you should go to cad.onshape.com/sign in, and then what you will see here is this pretty cool parang login page. And if you have yet to sign up, go ahead and click the sign up page here, and then let's just wait and see. Okay, so kapag punta natin dito, right, we will not be going here, right? Will not go for this. We will go instead for this one on the top right. If this is not accessible to you guys, right, you should just type in on Google or wherever your browser is Onshape for education. Alright? So, kailangan for education yan. Kasi nga, well, we are, you guys are students. I am a professor, so, well, ganito tayo. Okay? So, I'll just put in here my my student email. You can see it's still a student email. Okay. And now, what you should see is something like this. Ang mangyayari pa is that, well, they will ask you to configure a lot of things, and depending on what you configure, right? Depending on what you configure, syempre iba-iba yung mga settings natin. I think there is a setting here to choose how you will navigate through SolidWorks, right? And kayo na bahala if you would like to, sorry, not SolidWorks, but Onshape. Onshape is their own way of navigating through things, but of course, hopefully, naalala nyo pa rin how to navigate SolidWorks. So either which way that can work. You can create your new document in here. Yan, new document. And let's say, for example, let's just do this. Exercise 6 na ba yan? Basta, ano na lang, introduction. Introduction to Onshape. Let's just wait for this. This is, of course, a web-based application. Ibig sabihin, well, this is not solely dependent on my computer's specifications. Right? It's also based on how fast and how well your internet is connected. Right? So currently, right, what I'm doing in here is I'm panning. And I'm panning using the mouse wheel, right? And sabi nga natin back in SolidWorks, right? How you pan is control and then, right? And then, what do you call this? Using the mouse wheel. But in this case, right, I've turned on Onshape, right? Onshape controls. So you can configure that how you would like, right? There's some parang first time settings pa in there, right? And what you can see is that I am now panning using just the mouse wheel. And how do I rotate? Right? I am rotating using the right click. Right? I'm using the right click. This thing, right, is also a bit more useful for me. Right? Ito na yung nakikita natin if you remember the exploded cube. Right? This is the more accessible version of the... oops. Yeah, let's just turn that off. Okay, this is the more accessible. Wait a second, if that's turned off. Hold on. If that's turned off, then my oh my goodness gracious. Wala. Ayaw mag-ano ng phone ko. You're encountering difficulties. Hold on. There. Okay, good. So because this is a web-based application, changes in the internet connection are gonna be very brutal. So I definitely understand if you guys are gonna have trouble not only with the 3D aspect of this, but also with just everything else. Now, yun nga, ang gagawin natin is we right-click and hold to rotate. Depende na sa inyo. If you use SolidWorks, the same as before, right? You middle click, right? You click with your mouse wheel to rotate, and then control and middle click for you to pan, right? You can also just click any one of these views right here, right? Para, yun, right? Diretso na tayo sa ating anong tayo dito? Pag sa SolidWorks, or basta pag Onshape, right? Before, what we've done was to extrude, right? To extrude, to cut, extrude. In this case, they are less parang discriminatory when it comes to adding material versus removing material. So, I'll just give a brief overview of what happens when you extrude something, right? If you want to extrude something, first of course, we have to sketch, right? So, mag-sketch lang tayo very quickly. We sketch on the top plane, and then there you go. Let me just sketch something in here. What you can do, right? I am now using a line. Syempre, I'm not explaining like every single detail in here, but yun nga, if you're using a line, what you can see immediately is the what do you call this? The number, the distance of the line, right? So if you want, you can before even clicking, this also has smart dimensioning, just so you guys know. Right, before clicking, what you can do is just type in the number 5. What happened? What? Ayun pala, yun. After clicking pala, you type the number 5, edi tapos na tayo. And then you can continue 5, and then continue. And what you can see in here as well is that with enough parang context, excuse me, Onshape can also help snap things for you. So right now I've just created a square, right? And if we want, right, we can smart dimension. So you can smart dimension here. And the thing is that this is very happy for me as someone who uses keyboard shortcuts a lot, right? You can use just the letter D, right? Para mag-smart dimension tayo. In this case, I want to kind of center this thing. 5 divided by 2, right? 2.5. Makikita nyo may F. So magtataka kayo bakit may F dyan. It's because Onshape here says na I calculated something, right? So it will give you kumbaga a kind of function, right? Ayan, function 2.5. Okay? So you can put that in, you can put that out now, and we can go back to this view, right? We can now extrude. And let's say, for example, I extrude this, right? Makikita nyo, it's still the same thing, much the same thing. It's less responsive because, again, like we cannot fully expect the performance of this, especially on older, lower powered computers, right? So I definitely understand if you guys are unable to get this to work, right? And you can also set in here the dimensions if you guys would like. And much of this is the same way, it works the same way as in SolidWorks, right? So if you want to change direction, you can click this, right? You can also make it symmetric or mid-plane, ang tawag natin than before, right? And now you can change direction if you would like, ayan. Direction, second position if you guys would like, or yun nga, yung just symmetric, right? And this is now what we're talking about. You can add, remove, and intersect, right? At this point, we are not looking at extruded boss/base. We are not talking about extruded cut. We're just talking about extrude. So in this case, right, Ang kabaguhan natin dito is that everything is now in one place, right? Adding material, removing material, they're all in one place. So currently we have this, right? We have this. And now we can see the other things in here, right? Revolve, sweep, loft, and thicken for some reason, right? You also have here fillets and chamfers, right? If you guys would like, you can explore all of the other features for your project, of course, right? There are boundless amounts of tutorials out there naman, right? And now let's try and find a way for us to cut a hole in this thing, right? Just again to show you guys, right, what I mean when I say na magkapareho na ang place ng extruded boss slash base and ng extruded cut. This is what we'll do, 2.5, and then that's good. And let's see, right? This is what we will be cutting, right? Kasi ang mangyayari nga is that if you include, right? If you include, oops. Yeah. If you include or add, what do you call this? Material, of course, you would go to add, right? Pero if you want to remove material, syempre, it's going to burrow down, right? That's what's going to happen, right? So you can keep going, or again, what you can do is up to next or through all, right? Pag through all, si Onshape nang bahala, right? It will go through everything and then boom, right? It's now done. And just so you guys know as well, right? I think Onshape is way more forgiving when talking about, let's say for example, fillets, things like that. Right? Kasi meron pang dati may angal si SolidWorks na like, oh, I can't do this because it would remove part of the geometry. But in this case now, I think Onshape is more accommodating kapag ganun. Let's say for example, in this case, I've made this cube to be 5 centimeters, right? And also, if you guys want to change your workspace units, right, you should go here, right, to the settings here, and then workspace units, and then ayan, makikita nyo, you can now change literally everything in here, right? What we usually go with is millimeters or sometimes inches. So kapag naka-inch, well, gawin nyo na lahat, everything is in English. So inches, pounds, foot pounds, those kinds of things. Okay? So an inch per second squared, blah, 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 blah. Everything is in pound force, inch pound, foot pound, mga ganong klaseng bagay. And, well, you can change it there. Okay? Now, where were we? What was I going to do? The fillet. Sorry. Alright. Usually, what a fillet would do, ang sasabihin ni SolidWorks is that, oh no, I can't do this because it would parang, anong tawag ito? It would ruin it. It would remove part of the geometry. But if we remove this lang, let's delete this. Let's delete this hole, and then let's also delete this sketch. I want to kumbaga completely shave off a whole part, a whole section of this thing that I think would be impossible otherwise, or would be hard to do. So SolidWorks, let's try the fillet function now. Right? The fillet function, let's say for example, let's make that 5 cm. Right? 5 cm, let's say for example, ito, this is the thing I want to remove. And usually, kapag ganito, magagalit si SolidWorks. Why? Because, sasabihin niyo, huy, I can't do this. But look, the thing is, right, that Onshape can do this without any issue. Right? It just shaved off like more than half of the, well, is that more than half? I think it's about half. It's less than a half. Yeah, less than a half of the volume of the cube, right? Without any issue. Feeling ko si SolidWorks, it would have a much harder time with something like this. So let's say for example, something else, right? A bit more taxing sa ano tayo ito? Sa SolidWorks, which would be, let's just put this back. Yeah. Something more taxing SolidWorks, which would be just to create a sphere, right? In this case, again, the sides of this box, the sides of this cube are going to be 5 centimeters. So, what you would do, let's say for example, gawin nating half, right? Ang gagawin ko is that I will apply a fillet to every single, right? To every single, what do you call this? Every single edge, right? Edge. And then hopefully, at the end, we will get to see a complete sphere. Ayun na nga, yeah. There you go. There it is, right? That's your complete sphere from a cube. So we have shaved it off using fillets, right? And now, once that is done, papakita ko na sa inyo how to use the revolve function, right? The revolve function, we are going to try to create something like this, right? Kasi this was only possible through an extrude and then, right? Fillet all the way out, right? But I will teach you guys how to create a sphere using revolution, right? Using revolve. And yun nga, I would have to ask that you access one of your darkest memories, which if nag-take tayo ng Kaling 2, would be about quiz 3, solids of revolution, right? I'm not asking you to compute for anything right now. Yung papa re-access ko lang sa utak ninyo would be the shell and the washer method, right? Those two things are how we get 3D shapes out of 2D objects or sketches. So hopefully, sorry, you can now recontextualize these shapes as being things that we revolve, right? So, very simply, ang gagawin ko muna, mag-sketch lang ako, sabihin na lang natin, right? Let me create a little sketch. Oh my goodness. See full screen. Right? What we will create here, or what a revolve needs to have, is not a thickness per se. Right? Kasi ang nangyayari kapag nag-extrude tayo, let's say for example, we are trying to extrude a rectangle like this, what would happen is that we just need to give our CAD software a height, and then yun na yun. Right? That would be it. Sorry, I'm drawing with my I'm drawing with my mouse. Right? This is extrusion. However, right, for a revolution, for a revolve, what you need is not a height, right? It's not supposed to be a number, it's supposed to be another reference line. Let's say for example, this rectangle, I'll try to make it a bit more straight. Okay, never mind, it would not be straight because of how my hand is oriented anyway, right? Isipin natin that this is our shape, this is our sketch. We need something else, kumaga, right? To be able to reference what we call an axis of revolution. Hopefully you guys remember an axis of revolution, right? Let's say for example, this is our axis of revolution, this thing. What will happen is that now, right, the sketch will continue or will create and revolve around the axis of revolution. Kaya nga axis of revolution, it literally revolves, right? The shape literally revolves around the axis. So ganyan na magiging itsura niya, right? Let's say for example, now we have the same, bakit pa palaging curve? Right? Let's say for example, we have the same rectangle, but now our axis of revolution is now oriented here. What will happen then? Right? Of course, the axis of revolution, that is where the shape will follow. So in this case, instead of this cylinder that is oriented, paano ba to? Horizontally, there's a top and a bottom. Now there's going to be a cylinder that has a left and a right, right? And the thing about this is that it doesn't, whoa, my goodness, is that it doesn't end there, right? What do we mean? Let's say for example, again, we will take the same rectangle, and let's say for example, na ngayon, yung axis of revolution ko is not a shape in the, what do you call this? In the, or on the shape itself. The axis of revolution is somewhere else. Let's say for example here. Right? Paano mangyayari dyan? Hopefully you guys have enough of the training from Kaling to imagine a torus, or at the very least a donut shaped kind of thing. right? So let me draw some hidden lines in here. Try to draw some hidden lines in here, right? But now that is the shape of your revolve, right? And of course, right? Syempre, the craziness does not end there. So long as you know, or so long as you can specify the axis revolution, ayan, makikita nyo that you can create some very weird shapes with this thing, right? You can create some very weird shapes out of this thing. I will now draw this. Kasi meron siyang parang butas sa loob. It gets bigger, and then this thing is now your shape, right? So it gets very, very messy very quickly. But now hopefully you guys understand what needs to be done to create a sphere without having to go to the extent of like extrude and then fill it, blah blah blah. Nakikita nyo na ba? Hopefully kung ano nakikita ko, right? In this case, let's just hide this thing for now. Let's suppress this thing. Right? Ang gagawin natin, let's also suppress this thing. Ang gagawin natin, let's select the front naman, the front for us to sketch. Say now we have this, and now I will create a line that will go 5, and now I will create an arc, right? I'll now create an arc, and then arc, right? So hopefully you guys are following what's going to happen, right? And now you select the letter D for dimension, right? And then I will dimension this to become 0. Kasi gusto ko na, yes, there you go. And now, do you guys see what I'm about to do? I will now revolve this thing, this, and then the revolve axis will be this. And now we see, of course, the same sphere. Right? So yun, ganun ang kailangan nating isip-isipin. Right? If you want, you can create a completely different sketch. Let's say on the front plane, and let's make it very weird. So for example, ganyan. Okay? We can totally do this such that we revolve this thing around this thing. Right, so we will create this weird donut shape. It looks like yung anong tawag dun? Yung lamp that looks like a cloud. You know what? Yeah, it looks like this. There's a flat part, and there's also a rounded part right here. So let me put it back there, right? And now yung render options natin, what you can do is shaded with edges, shaded without edges. Say for example unshaded, there you go, and then let's say for example translucent, right? So definitely you can get different parang what do you call this? You can get different views from here, right? Tangent edges visible, tangent edges phantom, tangent edges removed. What about that? Okay, sige. Unshaded. Now, where were we? Ito yung favorite ko, right? If you guys remember from when we're doing SolidWorks, right? When we're doing SolidWorks exercises, ang ginagawa ko is pinapa-unshaded ko and then hidden edges visible. So we can see the inner workings, right? You can see the circle here, the half circle here, and then you can kind of see, or you can kind of visualize where yung gitna, right? Where the axis revolution stands. Right? And so now, your guys' goal is to create, right? Is to create this thing, the coffee tumbler. Right? I will adjust for this. I will adjust the deadline for this, of course. Right? But, eto. Right? For today's task, please create and successfully replicate the assembly formed by this coffee tumbler and lid configuration shown below. Right, so everything in here is in millimeters. So you guys please change that accordingly. And then, eto, nakalagay. Right? Nakalagay. You don't need to put in the dimensions, of course, because this thing is half of the profile of your cup. Hopefully, you guys can understand what this means, right? This L shape right here. Can I move my ano kaya? This this L shape right here is just half of, right? Is just going to be half of the, oh my goodness. It's just going to be half of the cup, right? And also this thing here, this thing is going to be half of the, yeah, this thing is going to be half of the lid, right? And this thing right here is the lid stop, right? And the thing about the lid stop is the fact that you're going to see here may shaded region, right? The shaded region is for this embed, right? Hindi nyo makikita yan sa profile ng ating lid here, but there's going to be an embed. Yung circle na outside diameter is 70, the inside diameter is 65, and the space between, the shaded space here, you're going to cut by a depth of 1 millimeter. So, kumbaga, ang goal nyo is to create, kumbaga, this, sinarado ko na pala yung Tayasui. Sige. Our goal here is to create number 1, right? Number 1 here, the cup. This is very exaggerated. The cup. Number 2, the lid. And mind you guys, the lid has to have an embed dito. And then, the final goal is to put them together. So you might be wondering, okay, how am I going to put these two things together? Well, ito na yung second part, right? I've told you guys about revolution. And I suppose another thing that I should tell you about would be, right? Would be offset, right? Kasi parang hindi ko pa na gagawa dito. Let's remove this for now. Yan, suppress. Okay, you know what, let's just hide these things. Okay. Another thing that you might want to take advantage of is the offset, of course, our very good friend offset, ever since AutoCAD. Right? Let's say, for example, we have a line here, we have a couple of lines here. And let's stop there. And ang pwede natin gawin is we can use offset, right? Again, letter O, right? Kayo na bahala as to how. Right? Ayan. So what you can do is that, or maybe have multiple, right? Have multiple. So makikita nyo, right? Offset. Very useful, hopefully. Right? Another tip pa rin pala is that the top sections here, the top surfaces here of the lip of the cup and the bottom surface of the lid must be flat. They're not supposed to be angled in any way. They're supposed to be flat. Huh? And that's going to be important because what we are going to do is we're going to assemble. Let's say, for example lang, I will create, you know what, let's create something a little bit more serious this time around. Let's create like a Lego block, right? Let's say a Lego block that has, right? Sige, mag-center point rectangle na tayo because we are getting serious. 5, 5. Sabihin natin ganyan. And let's say, for example, let's try and extrude this. Extrude. Let's say, for example, by like, I don't know, 3. Sige, let's make it 3. And then, itong top, lagyan natin ng parang Lego-looking thing. Right? Let's sketch here. Let's see the top. Let's create Lego blocks. Lego-looking things. 1.5. Sige, 1.5. And now, let's dimension this. 1.25. 1.25. And then, let's say, for example, there's going to be a smaller circle here. Ano kayang nito? Value 1.1 na lang. Yan, 1. And then, let's just copy and paste these things. Linear pattern. Let's linear pattern these things. Okay, hindi pala 3 times, just 2. Their distances should be 2.5. Their distances should be 2.5. If you guys are wondering what is currently happening, well then, dapat, ang mangyayari dito, negative 2.5. Okay. What's happening here is kind of like the arrays that you're supposed to do, right? Yung exercise 4 natin, right? So these are what we call linear patterns instead in SolidWorks or in Onshape, right? Yeah. And now, you can just put that together, and there you go. Ito, i-extrude din natin sila. Those are very scary. Lego studs. Let's say, for example, let's just 0.5. Sige, gawin natin 1. Okay, that is too far. 0.5. Okay. Now, right, meron na tayong ganyan. Oh, that looks cool. Okay. What we can do now is, let's say, for example, ano kayang pwede kong gawin dito? I will create another part, and if you want to create another part, then so be it, right? Ang pwede natin gawin dito is you can go down here, and you can create another, what we call a part studio. Kumbaga, this is where you create different parts, right? Let's say, for example, I want to create another kind of part that has a wider parang base, right? That has a wider base but is by definition flatter, right? Let's say flatter. So what we do is we sketch here, and then let's try to make a rectangle that is 10 by 10. Tapos, let's say for example na we create again those circles, 1.5. This is 1 again, 1, and then we have their dimensions like this, 1.25, 1.25 again here. Kumbaga, we are just making this very uniform, like how Legos are usually, right? Linear pattern, this and this. Let's make this 4 times 4. Let's make this 4 times. Let's make this negative 2.5. And then there you go. Kumbaga, yeah, you're now seeing, hopefully you guys are now seeing the goal here, right? And now, okay, let's try sketch 1. What we'll do is we will try to extrude. Ayan, so syempre ganyan, extrude tayo. And honestly, I want to extrude everything. I'll be doing a bit of clicking right here. Kasi magkakahiwa-hiwalay na ang kanilang mga shapes. So I'll just try to click in everything. Let's try to make this a bit flatter now. Right? Let's try to make this a bit flat. Yeah, 2.5 will work. Actually, not just like 1.5 maybe. Yeah, something like that. Okay. Yeah, we've created our flat base. Let's put that back. And then, let's extrude this again. But now, ang gagawin ko, right? Ang gagawin ko, I will remove the first one. And instead, what I'll be doing lang, oops. No, show please. Right? What I'll be doing is that I'll be cutting. Right? I'll be cutting these things from the ground. Or actually, pwede maglagay muna tayo ng studs beforehand. Let's create these studs first. Yeah. Yes, those kinds of studs. And then, just make this 2. Yan. And then, you can do that. And then, again, right, what can happen here is that I will just, bubutasan ko lang itong bottom na 4 because hopefully you guys are now seeing what I want to do in here, right? I want to remove material. So, remove material, let's say for example, 1 or 0.75 or actually 1 cm works already. And then let's just switch. Yep. It's the amount of material I want to remove. Actually, sige, 0.75 na lang natin. Baka mamaya kung ano mangyari. And now there is our removed portion, right? I actually want to see. Tama ba, 0.5 lang to. So what we can do is we can edit, right? Much like before, we can edit feature and just make this 0.75, 0.5 na lang. Yeah. A bit shallower, but there you go. Now, we will have our assembly. Nandito na tayo sa ating assembly, and what we can do is that we can insert parts, right? We can insert parts, and syempre nandito yung ating mga parts, right? Part Studio 1, right? That thing. And then Part Studio 2, which is the, oh my gosh, okay, I can move them both. Sige. Sino dito ang fixed? Okay, they're both fixed. Oh, they are not fixed. Okay, there you go. I can drag them up. I can drag them apart. Skip it. Yeah, okay, yan. Now group them apart, right? What you can do is just like click and drag, like normal, left click and drag. And now, finally, how are you going to put these guys together, right? As you can see, currently there is a gap between the two. What you want to do is close the gap. And how you want to close the gap is through something what we call mating. I know it sounds a bit weird, that kind of articulation, but in this case, mating refers to how two things are going to interact with one another. How two surfaces, how two edges, how two points, basta how two objects are supposed to interact with one another. Are they supposed to be in contact with each other? Are they supposed to be perpendicular always? Are they supposed to always be at a parallel distance away from each other? In this case, for us, right? For us, we want the bottom, this part of the Lego, right? And this part of the Lego to always be in contact. Kumbaga. So this is what we will try to force, hindi naman force, but create relationships via mating. So where will we mate? Ito yung mate connector natin. In SolidWorks, in the normal SolidWorks universe, you would see a paperclip. So kumbaga nga, a connection, right? So create a mate connector on or between parts, blah, 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 blah. But there are also different kinds of mates in here referring to different kinds of possible motion between the two, right? So in this case nga, honestly, we can just try with these mates. Right? I myself am not very aware of all of the mates in here currently, but yeah, let's try remove all degrees of freedom between two entities. Right? Revolute mate, slider mate, allow transition along the z-axis. Right, so these kinds of things. Planar mate. Try natin ang ating mga mate connectors here and then here. Okay. Sige nga, try natin. Okay. What's currently happening in here is that yun nga, magkadikit na sila, right? As you guys can see, the bottom surface of this thin plate and the top surface of this thicker plate, right, are now connected. Pero of course, what we want to do with our Legos is we want them to, kumbaga, clasp onto each other through the studs, right? So, we need something else, right? We need a kind of revolute or sliding mate. Allow transition along the z-axis. Let's say, for example, we want this thing, right? This highlighted surface here, and nasan ba ang corresponding niya? Ito, the inside surface of this thing to be sliding on top of each other, right? And now, ngayon, naiisip natin, right? The inside and then the outside has to be sliding. But because now, right, we have now completely locked this thing, because now, ang mangyayari is that SolidWorks / Onshape will try to imagine, okay, kailangan magka-contact yung dalawang surfaces. And kailangan din, sabi mo, the cylinder has to be in contact. So now, there is only one possible solution, which is this. Right? Which is this. If anything nga, yeah, if anything, pwede mo pa itong ma-slide around. So, let me see if I can try to rotate this thing. Okay, parang hindi ko na siya ma-rotate. Alright, sige. Whatever you say. Okay. Ayan. They are completely fastened at this point. Right? Okay. So there you go. That is how to do a mate. So in this case, an expectation I have as well is that you guys are going to completely mate the two. Right? Igaganon nyo yung tumbler and then the lid. Right? And how you're going to be able to do this thing, or how you're going to show me that you have completed this project, is via recording as well, right? Either of your phone, using your phone pala rather, or another screen recording like this one. What I just want you to do is to upload to here you go, website URL, media recordings, file uploads, and yun, ilalagay nyo lang dito a video of you doing something like this. Let's say for example I'll just update this. Hindi ko pa lalagay yung due date. Let me do that right now. Actually, 11 a.m. Here we go. What I want you guys to do is something like this. You go and put the objects in unshaded, and then you put on hidden edges visible, basta so that I can see what's going on. And then what you're going to do is something like this. Present to me the isometric view, or hindi nga to isometric view. You can do a true isometric view here, pero well, that's kind of not what I want, right? Basta a 3D view, right? An isometric-ish view. What you can also do is what you have to do afterwards, after isometric view, you go top, and then you go you go top, you go front, and then you go right. So that is the thing, or kumaga, those are the views that I want. Right? I know that the rotation is such that hindi naman talaga sila, there's no distinction between the front view and the right view, but still, right? Isometric, top, and then front, and then right. Front, and then right. Something like that. Right? So yun lang. Once you have that, what you can do is you can do a bit of a jiggle, kumbaga, like just have me see all of the details. And the thing is, kapag pupunta na kayo dun sa lid, please zoom in on the lid and give me the front view. Magaganyan, maglalagay kayo ng ganyan. I want to see the lid. Right? And you can also check this for yourself. Of course, kailangan the lids, what do you call the surface, the top of the lip of the tumbler and the bottom surface of the lid need to be completely flat. Right? And syempre, try to move it as well. Right? So this one, hindi ko na magagalaw talaga. If I move it, I move the other part of this project. Right? So that is it. So front, isometric, top, front, right, and then go in front, right? Look at the parang the zoomed in version of the lip of the lid, and then of the tumbler, and then try to move it. Right? So those are the views I want you guys to show me. This can be really fast naman. Of course I can pause, right? But yeah. Okay? So that is clear. Hopefully, if you guys have any questions, please do let me know. And you know what, actually, dahil wala naman tayong class, as in like, it's an online class. I don't have to be strict with the deadlines. You guys can do this up until like 10 p.m. naman. I will not force this on you. Let me put this in now. But, ayun. There you go, 10 p.m. on a very, very transparent. That's it. Thank you guys. If you have any questions, please do message me. And good luck. Good luck. Ayun. Thank you.